Some months back, me and a friend of mine were watching the Initial D remake movies. I had already seen the first 3 seasons of the show, but since my friend had never watched it, I figured that showing him the movies was a good way to introduce him to the show. And there is this scene in the second movie that caught me off guard. After you see a race between Ryosuke, a pure drifting legend, against the Nissan Skyline driven by Nakasato from the racing team Night Kids, they have a chat at the end of the route. And when they decide to get in their cars and drive away, you see a red Honda Civic in the distance. Inside the car there is a driver, a new challenger yet to be announced, his face covered by shadows and the smoke from his cigarette, giving us a spooky smirk as the shot pans out. I knew that this character was Shingo, the next challenger in the series, and to be honest, he isn't such a big deal even though they made his first appearance look so intimidating. But you have to imagine how this scene affects someone who watch it for the first time, like my friend. This kind of introduction leaves the viewer thinking, who might that be? Is this some sort of new villain? And why is he so hidden away? And this mysterious atmosphere surrounding Shingo is created by using foreshadowing, the art of showing what comes next. Foreshadowing has always been one of my favorite techniques used in anime. Showing off some bad guy or a new challenger early enough to get your attention, but still hidden enough to make you puzzled and lust for more, is something I've always found fascinating. The example I talked about in the introduction isn't the best example of foreshadowing out there, but I still feel that this scene makes Shingo look way more mysterious and frightening than he actually is. To give you some context here, Shingo is a double-chinned bastard that likes to crash into other people's car during races. He also loves to challenge people to his own duct tape challenge, whatever that kinky stuff is, and managed to crash during his own challenge. The point is, Shingo is a loser. A legit loser. But by using this kind of foreshadowing on a character like Shingo, you make someone who used to be a loser look like a real villain. And that's the magic of foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is simply a tool used to create a build-up to prepare you for something spectacular or unexpected. And the art of foreshadowing can come in many different forms. They can come in the form of a spoiler, they can be symbolic, or sometimes almost unnoticeable. The thing I love the most about them is that they grab the viewer's attention in such a subtle way, and the way this art is executed best is in the series' opening sequence. However, if we talk about foreshadowing in anime, I feel that there are 2 different types of foreshadowings that we need to talk about. The first one I'd like to call the hidden in plain sight foreshadowing. You see most of this in opening or ending sequences, and the best example I have is that of Ymir, the mother of all titans in Attack on Titan. In the ending sequence of Attack on Titan's 2nd season, you can clearly see a medieval picture of a girl making a deal with the devil, and as the ending progresses, you see more and more of these old-looking clips and the whole ending sequence starts to make less and less sense. But all these random shots is finally explained in the end of season 3, roughly 30 episodes later. So while all the manga readers at the time was fully clear of what was going on, none of the anime viewers really understood anything, making them puzzled, creating questions that would remain unanswered for years. The second type of foreshadowing is what I'd like to call the sneak peeks. A sneak peek foreshadowing is just like what I mentioned earlier, a scene with a character or an unidentified being yet to be revealed, teasing the viewers and grabbing their attention, just like Shingo from the initial D movies. Remember what I said earlier about foreshadowing being almost unnoticeable and subtle? Well, if there is a king of foreshadowing, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure would definitely wear the crown, and the way they execute the different foreshadowings is as subtle and unnoticeable as possible. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has some of the most foreshadowing-packed openings I've ever seen. For example, if you watch the second opening for part 3 of JoJo's called Sono Chi no Kyoku, you won't notice anything special at first. But as the show progresses, the different shots in the opening starts to make more and more sense. Let's review this sequence right here. This simple shot is right before Abdul's death, the second one is just before Kakyun's death, this is right before Joseph gets stabbed by Dio, and this is when Jotaro fights Dio at the end of the part. And if that wasn't enough, at the end of the opening you get this shot with Jotaro ready to confront Dio. And then for a split second you see Dio teleport behind him before Jotaro turns around and the fight begins. These are all excellent examples of foreshadowing, but wait, hold your horses, there is more. If you thought they had spoiled enough already, you haven't seen anything yet. As the show gets closer to its last episode, the opening starts to add even more details to these different shots. But they are so detailed and subtle that you actually need to pause at the correct time to actually get a glimpse of it. If you pause the first shot correctly, you can see Dio stand at the end of the hallway. If you pause the 2 next shots correctly, you can see Dio stand the world, and in this last shot you see Jotaro stand Star Platinum fight back at Dio's power. This is 8 different examples of foreshadowing in the short time span of 4 freaking seconds. But wait, hold your horses once again. There is more. When Dio stand the world has been introduced to the show, the scene at the end of the opening is a bit different than usual. When Dio is supposed to teleport behind Jotaro, the world instead shows up and uses ability to stop time so that the opening pauses for a couple of seconds. And in this short period of time, you see Dio walk past Jotaro, and when he stops, the opening continues. You have seen this shot before, but now you get the full context of how Dio managed to teleport behind him, and this is the magic of foreshadowing that the directors of JoJo loves to play with. I'd like to put these 4 quick snapshots in the hidden in plain sight category, as they basically spoiled certain characters' death so subtle and hidden that you would need a full context to actually make sense out of it. And at the end, they show you this sneak peek, which is later fully explained. It is simply 2 different types of foreshadowings in one opening. It's obvious that the creators of JoJo loves to play and experiment with foreshadowing. And as the show progresses, so does their foreshadowing techniques. In part 4, you can even see new characters yet to be introduced to the show at multiple locations. For example, hiding in crowds and even showing you a sneak peek that doesn't even exist in the original manga. There's also a lot of symbolic foreshadowing in JoJo, but you can also find these in other series like Attack on Titan. Hell, the whole ending sequence in Attack on Titan's final season is focusing on a bird, which later pans over to Falco, telling you in secrecy that he will turn into a bird titan. No, I'm not even joking. So now, ladies and gents, comes the big question. Why is foreshadowing so important? Well, foreshadowing grabs the viewer's attention in ways you wouldn't expect. It's hard for someone new to a series to see the different hints and secrets hidden inside an episode or an opening. But as soon as you fully understand the meaning behind them, it makes you realize how detailed and well directed these different scenes actually is. If we talk about the examples from JoJo, you feel that they actually took their time planning out these small surprises just for us manga readers. And that helps, creating a realistic feeling, knowing that the characters that will be introduced later has always been there. Instead of random characters showing up and involving themselves in the story, foreshadowing them early on removes the randomness and strengthens the mysteriousness. That's why it's so important. Different animes has an urge to always move on without any actual conclusion, which can at times seem messy and unnatural, but by using foreshadowing you can remove this element. You can create tension, you give us questions we want to be answered, they make you invested, and usually they also have a nice conclusion. And with that, I'll thank you for watching this video. Until next time.